another HACKFLIX podcast. And okay, I'm always excited to be sitting cross table with amazing people, but this time I have someone that has done a lot, and I'm so ashamed that I got to discover his work like just 2 weeks ago. So let me introduce you, Remo.
Yes.
Remo is software engineer. So I'm just gonna list a few things there, and you tell me when I'm wrong. But
okay.
I think I'm gonna get them all right. So Remo is a TypeScript Microsoft MVP.
Yes.
He's a writer. He wrote an amazing book called Functional Programming in TypeScript, and he's an OSS guy. That's like when people think OSS, they just think about contribution to code, but you do way more than that. You're going to tell us more about that in a second. He has his own company, so helping a lot of people in Dublin area, because that's where you live.
Yeah.
And in terms of open source contribution, you have the Enversify.js, and as well as running the Dublin TypeScript community. And one bit, it's endless. One last bit is you're organizing the first ever JavaScript conference in Dublin and in Ireland as a whole. So, that's a lot of stuff. Let's unpack that.
Yes.
Step by step. Software engineer, where did you start, and what is your journey so far?
So I became interested in computers in general because video games.
Video games.
So
that's a natural path there.
Like one of my earliest memories is that one day my parents went to do the shopping of the week, like groceries.
Yeah.
But when they came back, they actually had a Super Nintendo.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't planned to buy a Super Nintendo or anything like that. And I didn't know what was a video game. But I do remember that day. So my dad showed me. He was like, this is a video game. This is how you use it,
Yeah, nice.
Since day one, I love it. So I play a lot of video games.
Nice.
Through all my childhood and teenager years,
Okay.
But then eventually I actually started to become interested about how are they made, Not just to play them, but who made them. It's good
to play. Now let's see what you have inside.
Yeah.
Nice.
I started to watch, for example, like back then was like DVDs and stuff, but it was like how are they made? Like the collector editions used to come with how it was made,
Okay, great.
So I started to learn about the different studios, the different roles, right? Because it's like 3D artist, programmer, whatever. So I started to learn about all those things.
Okay.
And then eventually I decided to study computer science because I wanted to be a game developer.
Okay. So you study computer science at a university in Spain?
In Spain, yeah.
Yeah, because Remo you're from Spain?
I'm from Spain, yeah. I'm from Sevilla, in the south of Spain.
Great. So you study computer science there, and then you, when you were studying computer science, did you know where you wanted to be already, or what, or you were just following the wind, or?
So I wanted to be a game developer. That was kind of like the dream. But then I actually didn't know the details about what is involved in being a game developer. So as I started to learn coding for the first time, I started to realize what is involved. Yeah. And in the course I did, everything was focused on web development.
Web development, yeah.
So I became obviously very skilled in web development because that's what I was learning in class. And I eventually actually really started to enjoy web development. So I kind of forgot about game development because at the same time I realized that becoming a game developer is difficult because there's not many places where you can learn it.
Indeed. It's a small industry in a way, and
in Spain in particular there was very little jobs in this field, you know, because at the time I wasn't thinking about leaving Spain. I was open to it, but I wasn't like, I'm definitely going to leave Spain. That wasn't my roadmap, you know?
Yeah. So nice. And then did you start working in Spain, or you moved?
I did. So the way it worked is I had to do a final project.
Yeah.
And I came here to Ireland before the final project for like 4 months.
Okay.
And back then I saw that there was a lot of jobs here, a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, Dublin was booming in tech, in terms of tech
and in
opportunities.
Spain it was starting to be bad because this was the beginning of the recession.
Yeah, the recession, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually went back to Spain to finish the final project.
Yeah.
But then after I finished the final project, I was working for maybe 9 months. But back then I was actually I want to go back to Dublin.
Dublin, so, yeah. And you've been in Dublin for like 9 years, and you love it, and you've been shaking Dublin from every single angle. So let's unpack that part. So you arrive in Dublin, and I think the tech community was just starting. Not even if you go back 9 years ago, it was just pretty much. Let's start. What the definition of tech in Dublin, I believe.
Yeah.
And so, how did you go and build everything you did so far?
So,
what inspired you?
I suppose when I was a student, I used to think that basically I wanted to be good in what I do. So I was like, how can I be good? Okay. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning I made mistakes. So I was basically inexperienced or whatever, but I thought that to be a good developer, you have to know a lot of different languages. Okay?
Indeed.
So that was my first attempt. So I started to learn different languages, okay?
Yeah.
But then I realized this is a waste of time because they're all really the same.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
It's actually better to focus on one and become very good in one, rather than know a little bit of many, right?
Indeed.
So I was trying to find how can you become good in this field, and I was trying to look for kind of role models to follow.
Okay.
And my role models were actually big open source people like Richard Stallman or Linux, things, people like this, you know.
That's pretty high up there in terms of like.
I wasn't too obsessed about, because some people they have different role models. Like they have people who is very good at product development, like Steve Jobs or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was very obsessed about the actual coding. So I was like, who is good at coding?
Yeah.
You know. And I was like, I want to be like them.
Okay, nice.
So that's why I also became very passionate about open source, because I kind of associate in my mind the good people are definitely in open source.
Okay. So I'm one of the things that I ask to all my guests it's you already mentioned that in a way, like people who inspire you, people that you looked up to, and one of my goals as building these platform is to make sure that I get to talk to the people that inspired you, but with you being in the room that day. And so I'm gonna pick one name. You're gonna have to give me one name, and like that person, I looked up to that person, and my job is to go and find that person and get that person in the room with you, and then we're gonna have this talk, the three of us or just the two of you. So what was you mentioned Richard
Stallman.
Richard Stallman. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna make that happen, and the people who know me, they know that I'm gonna just pull that off. So
he has been a couple of times in the University of Seville.
Yeah, okay.
But I didn't get to meet him, you know.
Okay, cool. So and then at some point you dive into TypeScript. So but TypeScript is 2012 when it started, like late 2011, 2012. Yeah. And what was the thing that brought you there?
Okay, so as I said at the beginning, I started to experiment with a lot of different technologies. My training was mostly Java based, but then my first job here in Ireland was actually a place where they work with Microsoft technologies.
Okay.
With .NET and ASP.NET.
Yeah.
And back then I remember I really enjoyed the tools, like the Visual Studio, all the tools.
Yeah, Visual Studio was an amazing, it is an amazing IDE.
I found them to be way superior to anything else that I saw before, okay? So that's why I started to become very passionate about .NET in general.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I don't know exactly how, but eventually I ended up writing quite a lot of JavaScript. I think it's because applications started to become more like single page.
Yeah, indeed.
They were kind of hybrid back then, like they were server based, but you will load some pages with Ajax calls, things like that.
Yeah, indeed.
So it was like hybrid.
Because you had this ISP part where you will write, and then you still have the server side rendering part, and you have some hooks that you need to plug your JavaScript part, and then when the page renders, just triggers. Yeah, I did a little bit of ASP.NET. It was beautiful.
So I used to do a lot of jQuery. Started to do that, right? But coming from C#, I did notice that there was some missing parts in JavaScript.
Yeah, okay.
I really like JavaScript. Like there was something about it that. So you know the famous bad parts of JavaScript and all that.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. There is definitely bad parts in JavaScript.
Yeah.
But there was something about it that make it very enjoyable. You know, it was like it's
that thing is bad, but I'm gonna play with it because there's some joy, like being able to do everything you want or anything you want, and then you're like, it still works. Oh no, that case is gonna fail. That is, JavaScript is beautiful in that sense.
I really enjoy writing JavaScript. I know that sometimes it can shoot yourself and things like that, but I really enjoy it. So then, when I started to write more JavaScript, I was like, okay, I really have to start doing this right, because otherwise I struggle. Like I find that I'm having many books, many maintainability issues, you know. So I started to read like books about design patterns, how to like back then people didn't even use modules, you know, like it was optional. So I started to learn about require.js.
Okay, load that file before that other file, otherwise you're gonna have those issues. Yes.
So I started to kind of make large scale JavaScript one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I hear about CoffeeScript. So I thought, let's give it a shot and see what happens, because I thought maybe it's going to make my life easier.
Yeah.
I worked with CoffeeScript for like a year or two, and it did help some things, like for example the this pointer.
Yeah.
That problem was solved by CoffeeScript.
Like that was probably one of the most difficult part in JavaScript, the this keyword, and then CoffeeScript was actually
But it didn't solve other things because it wasn't type safe or anything like that.
Yeah.
Then Microsoft announced TypeScript, and obviously I was from day one kind of like, this is interesting.
Yeah. Because
it was like C#. I know that this is not the message actually that Microsoft likes to send, so they don't like to say that TypeScript is C# for the browser or anything like that. But the truth is that it was obviously appealing for the C# community.
Developers,
because a lot of things remind to it. You know?
Yeah, it's the same architect behind the scene. You can't fool us with that.
Yeah.
And it is amazing when we talk to developers that are C# based, or they have a C# or Java background, and we tell them you can have JavaScript typed, and they're like, yeah, but you know JavaScript, and then they see TypeScript, they're like, give me more. They love it even more. I have developers saying I love TypeScript even more than C#, because you still get that weird JavaScript thing, but the type safetyness there, it gives you even more joy, and cool.
I started to use it. Back then, obviously, I wasn't thinking about doing a meetup or anything like that. I actually think the meetups maybe at that point were kind of starting for me. Like I was going to my very first few meetups.
Okay. That was like probably
2012 or something.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. And here in Dublin there was not so many meetups. It was JavaScript, I think, was the first one.
Okay.
Now there's like many.
Like many of them. Like every single company is just creating a meetup. Yeah.
But again, I wasn't thinking about doing a meetup. I like this technology can help me, so I'm going to try it, you know?
Yeah.
And how I ended up writing the book was very strange. So I put, basically, after I worked with TypeScript maybe for a year or so, I put in LinkedIn, I say, I have TypeScript as a skill.
Yeah.
And then at some point, somebody sent me an email and say, we have been searching people with experience in TypeScript, and there's nearly nobody. So I was lucky to update my profile, I suppose.
Nice.
Because back then there was very little companies, very little people working with TypeScript. Now it's everywhere, but
could you explain to the people or like at what moment you think TypeScript became so popular?
So it's definitely directly related with the Angular 2 announcement.
Okay.
That was like, that kind of forced people to at least try it, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think what happened is, when, I don't blame this opinion, I think is probably fair enough, but I think when TypeScript was announced for the first time, the web community took it as a very negative thing, because at the time Microsoft had a very bad name in web development.
A very bad repetition.
Because they did their own kind of version of JavaScript. They did VB-script.
Yeah, indeed.
So people, I think they were afraid. They
even had JavaScript at some point, and then VB-script, and
So I think people was probably thinking, this is the next VB-script.
Yeah.
And we don't want this.
Indeed.
So
and you were still there. You're like, no, I'm gonna keep going with that.
Yeah, because I didn't see it that way, because really at runtime it was JavaScript. So I didn't see it as a way to try to create their own standard or anything like that. And the other thing is that there was some things that were not like adhering to the standard. Like, for example, there was namespaces in TypeScript at the beginning.
Yeah,
that was
indeed.
because C#, and that is still there, but it's not recommended to be used anymore.
Indeed, same architect.
Yeah,
in a way.
So some things were not JavaScript standard, but I think back then those things bothered a lot of people. But I think those things are now not recommended anymore, and now definitely they are trying to follow the standard. Like now they are not introducing nothing that is not. Sometimes people ask for features. They say, we want this feature, and they say, well, we're not going to do it until the standard is more mature and is approved. It has to go to stage 3, I think. So they don't put things in the language if they're not standard.
Okay. So then obviously TypeScript became this big.
Yeah.
And then you were you had that amazing experience and expertise at some point. But then you start building like a community around TypeScript. Just walk us through that journey.
Yes.
And
So I was working on my first book that it was called Learning TypeScript.
Okay.
And when I was maybe halfway through the book, Google announced that they were going to use TypeScript. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was very good news.
Yes.
Because I was like, okay,
Christmas is here. Give me more.
This should push sales of the book.
Yeah.
And also they announced some new features like decorators and things like that. So I started to try. I actually delayed the book a little bit to try to incorporate some of this new stuff.
Yeah.
I was unable to cover Angular 2 because it was too early for that.
Yeah.
But some of the features I did. And then basically when I published the book, it kind of gave me some confidence on myself, you know, because it was like, okay, if I have managed to publish a book, maybe I can do something more, you know?
Yeah.
Because I actually, before that point, I actually feared public speaking, because I was like, I don't have nothing to say or nothing to share, you know?
People, listen, you can also share things with the community. It's just fight that fear. You can go, you can do it as well.
Felt like a guarantee or something. Like, it made me feel safe. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like, well, at least I have published a book, so I must know something, you know?
Okay. The weird thing with that, it's you went probably the other way around, because most of people will be like, I'm just gonna give a talk. Yeah. I'm gonna stand in front of people. That will probably be easier. You want to write a book. And then that book, you're like, okay, now I have the confidence to go and talk to people. Yeah. It's probably because it gives you also that, like, okay, this is a condensed version of my knowledge, TypeScript, and now you feel more legit to go in front of people. But yeah, probably for the people listening or watching this video right now, I should just encourage them to
go and speak. Yeah, there's no problem.
Just go out there and
one thing that has happened to me, since I did this, I have met a lot of people who say, "How do you write a book?
And how do you write a book?
Or do you have to be like a legend to write a book?" And no, like I always say the same thing. So you actually become an expert while you write the book.
Okay.
You're not an expert.
That is a nice way of putting it.
You're not an expert before you write the book, but when you write it, you have to double check everything, even the things you already know. Like you say, I know this, but do I think I know it or do I actually know it? So then you have to go and double check.
Yeah.
You know.
So Norbert, the guy behind one of the contributor behind Storybook, he mentioned that the best way to learn is when you teach to other people.
Yeah.
So the fact that you go and dive into the topic to the level where you're gonna write a book, meaning explaining to other people, then you actually learn even better.
Yeah.
So one of my questions will be there is like about that is, what is the thing that you learned while you were writing your book? Then you were like, you didn't probably know about TypeScript, and it was an eye-opening. What would have been that thing?
Obviously, like, for example, you have to dive into details about, for example, when I'm working day to day with TypeScript, I don't care about the code that generates too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't look at the output.
Okay.
But when you are writing the book, you check it because you want to know basically the low level details of everything.
Yeah.
So you go more into like how things work internally. You know, you kind of have to be. The way I feel it is, if I'm writing a blog post, I can choose how technical I want to go about it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But when you're writing a book, it kind of has to be certain level of technical there. So you have to go more technical than you normally do on your daily basis.
Yeah. Okay.
So because of that, you learn more basically.
Okay.
I think.
So it means that you shouldn't be afraid to open that box and then dive into to understand how things are.
Say that you're a TypeScript developer.
Yeah.
So you obviously know a lot of TypeScript because you use it every day. But if I ask you now to write a book, what you will do is you will do an outline with your knowledge, and then you will go deep in every point of your outline.
True.
So that's how you become the expert, basically, doing that.
Great.
Know? And at the time, this also brought me closer to open source because I was, for example, writing about decorators, but decorators were not merged yet.
Yeah.
So how can I learn about them? The only way was to look at issues in GitHub and look at design documents and things like that.
So we were basically diving into the book and how it's related to the community and your open source. Yeah, we were talking about the open source contribution and how it's related to your book.
Yes, so another thing, the two questions that I get a lot, as I say, is like, how do you become an author, right?
Yeah.
And I actually haven't gone through this, so it's not. You don't need to be an expert, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, the way I became an author, before I write the book, they actually offer me to review a book, not to write it.
Okay.
So that's how you become an author. You first review a book, you give your feedback, and the companies basically they value your feedback. They think you were able to give me good feedback about the book, so they could offer you writing one after that. Okay.
Oh, okay, nice. And which book did you get to?
It was one called Master in TypeScript.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From an Australian author. This actually, I wrote a blog post about this process, so you can actually sign up to all the publishers. They always have online form where it says, do you want to become a technical reviewer? And again, you don't need to be an expert because they want all skill levels. They don't want experts to review only, books. Yeah. They want also beginners to review books.
Yeah, indeed.
So
that's a good thing to know. That's a very good thing to know.
Yeah. So that you can become a reviewer, and then it depends of how well you do, but it might be 1 review or maybe 3, but at some point they will be like, we want you to write.
Okay.
The other thing is that authors get very tired of writing because it's a very hard job. Like you have to spend the whole evening writing, the weekend writing,
Yeah. Wow.
So it's not something that you can keep forever, I think. Especially once you have a family or so,
Okay.
So I think there's always room for newcomers to join the writing space,
Nice.
And then the other thing that happens is you kind of have to think ahead. So if you're going to write a book, if you started today, it's going to be probably out in 9 months from now.
Okay.
So you cannot write about how JavaScript looks today. It's like how JavaScript will look 9 months from now.
9 months from now. And then even further than that, because you're writing a book that will be like, once it's printed, it is out there.
So you have to kind of, for example, in the case of TypeScript, you have to look at the roadmap, see what's coming.
Cool.
And this actually opens opportunities for innovation that I didn't realize at the time.
Oh wow.
Because if you see that decorators are coming, okay, right now nobody's using them. So because they're not available.
They're not available, yeah.
So then you think, what are decorators used for in Java, for example? And there's a lot of different things. So you can release those things in JavaScript before nobody is doing it.
Okay.
So you can have, if you look at roadmaps, you have ideas about things that you can do.
Indeed.
So a lot of the other question that I was trying to say is that a lot of people also ask me, how do you start with open source, or how do you come with an idea for a project?
Because you actually built Inversified JS,
yeah. So the idea doesn't come from the sky, like you're in your house and one day this idea drops. It's not like that. I was writing the book, and I was talking about there was a chapter about object-oriented programming, and I was writing about the solid principles.
Yeah.
So the last one, the dependency inversion.
Yeah.
I was talking about it in the book, and then I wanted to mention dependency injection libraries because I knew them from C#. So I wanted to give an example, and I did a Google search, and there was none examples.
Yeah. Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is an opportunity now for doing something. So straight away I started working on Inversify because I saw that there was a gap for something. So I think when you write, you get these kind of opportunities a lot.
It is completely, it's a different path. It's really the first time that I heard that, and I really like that process, because most of people will read the roadmaps, or that's just a blog saying, here's the roadmap for Angular or for TypeScript, and then pass. Like, okay, we just say, there is the next version we're going to have let's say decorators, and then move on from there. But then with your readings and then your the ability to just see, like, okay, that is missing in that space, I'm coming from that space, and in that new space doesn't have this thing.
Yeah.
Inspire you to build that. And I think it's the first time that I heard that, but then when I look back, I'm like, if you think about React,
it's the same thing, because the authors have a functional programming background.
Yeah, indeed. Like even Angular, it's literally Java developers that actually build that were behind Angular. So they brought this way of thinking, structuring the code, into that new space that was the web as a platform. It's fascinating. It's really to me, I never really thought about it that way, but indeed.
I thought about the React space a lot, because for me React has been a very cool experience, because before React I was fully object-oriented mindset. So it's been very mind-opening, and I have discovered a lot of things.
Okay,
thanks to React.
So let me quickly. So in Inversified JS, from there, you publish that package. You make it available to the community, and then Angular comes in, and then they're like, oh, we're going to bring that dependency injection mechanism
Yeah.
directly on the framework. And a few years went by, and as you mentioned, React, which is functional programming brought to the web,
Yeah.
you start thinking functional from a C# guy that went to TypeScript, and I was like, this is fantastic, I have type everywhere. Now you're like, now I can do more classes and inheritance and stuff like that. And then you're like, no, I'm going to do functional programming. And that actually leads me to your book, Hands-on Functional Programming with TypeScript. So how do you go from TypeScript is going to be that oriented OOP approach? Now I'm going to do that in functional programming and teach the world how to do it as well.
Yeah. So when I first saw React, I didn't get too much functional vibes of it. Like I didn't know nothing about functional programming back then. So the first thing I remember about React is that when I saw the JSX, I basically saw HTML in JavaScript, and I was like, what is this?
What the hell is this? Get that out of my way.
I was completely against it at the beginning, okay? I was like, this is like an anti-pattern. What are they doing?
Yeah, a lot of people can relate to that, really.
Yeah. Eventually I realized that it's okay, because basically the way I think about it is not HTML, it's actually JavaScript. They are functions. They look like HTML, but they're functions.
They're just functions, yeah.
So it's fine once you get it. But at the beginning, I was very confused by it.
Okay.
But the one that really made me start to wonder about functional programming was Redux.
Okay.
So I really saw how powerful Redux was from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like how easy to debug was, how easy to test was. All these things, the developer tools were very good. So I was very impressed by the whole thing.
Okay.
And then I was like, how they have this idea? It's too good, you know? So
and then you realized that their background was a functional programmer in a way.
And also with React, I think they did one thing that maybe is bad, but for me it turned out to be good. But one thing that they did is in the documentation they mention a lot of functional programming terms.
Yeah.
Like pure functions or stateless or whatever. And I think at the beginning, for a beginner, that's a bad thing, because you read the docs and you don't know what they are talking about.
Okay.
But for me, it was a good thing, because that kind of triggered my curiosity. So, okay, what that means?
Yeah.
So I started to learn about functional programming kind of terms and things like.
Okay, which did you read a book, or what was the process?
So it's been a difficult journey, because I think the functional programming space, like 5 years ago, was very not accessible, you know?
No, yeah.
Like all the books were in Haskell.
Yeah, welcome to Haskell. Yeah.
Or you need to know a lot of mathematics. Like the books were described in a very like academic way.
Yes.
So this is slowly changing. I read a few JavaScript functional programming books, but there was no TypeScript functional programming books. But there was a few projects being born in the last few years. Like there's one called FPTS and one called IOTS.
IOTS, yes.
Those two, they were very good.
Okay.
And then I learned from online docs like the Fantasyland project. But it's a very slow process. Like, for example, understanding the monad. I think I get it now.
Wow, really?
It's very difficult to explain it. It's almost impossible. But it takes years to understand what is a monad. Like, it's so abstract. So you have to get a lot of things before you get there.
Yeah.
It's a slow process.
There is this conference, it's like a hackathon in Switzerland in June 14. Like 3 days. It's gonna be Haskell programming all weekend. I'm gonna go there and I just try to get a way to explain monad. And I work with that for a while, but I still don't get really. It is difficult.
It's very difficult. Yeah.
But if you start mapping that into the JavaScript world, there is this idea of like scoping things, putting things in the box, and then start making sure that there is no like side effect. but I cannot really go further than that.
Yeah.
And I'm so looking forward. I was expecting you to explain me that.
I'm still learning. So there's one. I don't consider myself a functional programming expert at all.
Yeah.
Like it's a very long journey to. Okay. How can I be a functional programming expert if I don't even know Haskell? You know.
No, that is a false assumption right there. You just put on the table. No, not like for people listening. Obviously, as you mentioned yourself, you don't need to be an expert. You just gotta go there and start the thing. There is a pattern that I start seeing right now, coming from you, in the way you approach stuff. Inversify.js came from, I'm reading this thing and then I see a gap. Let me fill in that gap and make sure that people, no one gets stuck. That is on the open source world. And then you have this, I live in Dublin, there's not enough community thing, or there is a JavaScript, but there is no TypeScript. Then you started TypeScript Dublin.
Yeah.
And then you have, I'm reading books about functional programming. Oh, there's some in JavaScript. There is none in TypeScript. Let me write a book about. So I'm not done yet. Then there is another part, like there are JavaScript conferences everywhere in the world, but not in Ireland, not even in Dublin. And you're starting one.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that conference?
So the JavaScript conference was because I obviously like to be part of the JavaScript community.
Yeah.
And I go to some conference. Like I've been in the TypeScript ones, for example. There's only one so far, but I went to Seattle for that, and I hope to go to the next one. But there's a lot of conference in Dublin, but I personally think that they are not for developers. They are more for like product designers. Yeah. There's some content for example, there's a conference now called ShipItConf. And that is more for DevOps engineers.
Yeah.
But for actually pure developers, I don't think there was good content.
Knowing that in Dublin you actually have a huge tech community.
Yeah.
If you think about it for a second.
It's weird. Like and the JavaScript community in particular is huge here.
Yeah.
Like there is Angular meetup, React meetup, TypeScript, Node.js, Node School. There's so many, like Ember. Like
and no one wanted to organize a conference, and then you were like, good, you know what, let me show you how to do it.
So I thought, after I announced it, I have heard a lot of people saying we once tried to do it, but we didn't. I suppose it's because you have to take the risk. You have to make it, because for example for the venue and all these things we have to pay upfront, deposits and so.
Okay.
But I thought that there's a very high chance that it will work out, so I was like, let's try.
So can you tell people listening, what's your process there? Where are you at? You probably told me about selecting speakers.
Yeah.
When will it be, and what is the price range?
Yes, so the whole thing started to become serious last summer, I suppose.
Okay.
Last summer I was like, this has to happen.
Nice.
Then in around Christmas, I was like, okay, let's find a venue, let's find a date. So it was already starting to happen.
Okay.
And then in the last few months, what we did was we launched the call for papers. It's been open for 2 months, I think.
Okay.
It worked out very well. Like we had 160 proposals. I think for first edition is a good number.
Nice.
Most of the proposals were actually not from Ireland, which is also a good thing, because I think one good thing about this happening is that we will be able to bring expertise from outside that we don't meet usually here in Ireland,
Okay.
And right now we have the speakers almost fully selected. Like we are waiting for a few confirmations from the speakers.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to announce the speakers in June, early June.
Okay.
And then we have been also looking for sponsors. That also went well. Like we have almost all the sponsor packages sold.
Okay.
We have like 2 or 3 left.
Great.
And the tickets, I also think that it's going to be reasonable. I hope so. the starting price, if you are really enthusiastic and you want to buy it as soon as they go out, they are 95 euros.
Okay.
So the super early bird is very reasonable. I think.
So there are two things that we're going to do. So for your book, so hands-on functional programming with TypeScript, we're going to offer to the community people listening like two books, and I hope you will be able to sign them. So I just send that your way, you sign them, and then we make them available for the community. You. And then we, whenever the ticket goes live, we take one of them and we're just gonna make them available for the community. But they're not just gonna get that for free. So here's a let's put a challenge together. Then they know there is a challenge coming. The challenge should be something around what? TypeScript.
Okay.
What could that be? The challenge. What will be if you were to hire people at your company? What will be the challenge you will put on the table and be like, okay, if you do that, I hire you. And the hire process for us will be give away the books or
maybe maybe we can say the person who contributes more to definitely type. In a week.
Okay.
So we're
going to take a week, like the range will be a week, and then
or maybe more. I think 1 week is enough. Right?
1 week is enough. Okay, you will be choosing the week, and then we gotta take most of the.
And that will be good for the TypeScript community. So.
Okay. So they give and we give as well. So cool. It's in a box, so everyone will be waiting for that. So there is one thing. When I was learning TypeScript, I think most of people, even yourself, there's one person that we all looked up to, right? You know who I'm talking about already. And he wrote the foreword of your book.
Oh,
Bassarat. Yeah. That is how did you go about working with him, or
so Bassarat was helping from the very first minute, like when I started to learn TypeScript. Already you could find a lot of his answers in Stack Overflow. So that's how I got to know him. First I didn't talk with him, I just get to see his name again and again and again in Stack Overflow, He's an amazing contributor, and I think even received like a Microsoft contributor or Google contributor award a few weeks ago. There is this something like is the Google Developer Expert or
no it's something else that started out a few weeks ago when they reward you for being a contributor in the community. So it's not an MVP part, it's not the Google Developer Expert part, it's another thing. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you might want to look at it because you might want to look into it because it's it is something. I think it values the work not only of the people doing like coding and sharing knowledge, but mostly community builders and stuff like that.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and then eventually I started to use Twitter more, and then I kind of got to again not talking to him, but retweets, likes.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think he probably also got to see my name as well.
Cool.
So
at some point you're like, you look up to him, and it's like, but you're writing amazing books. And
so I reference a lot of his work, and he referenced a lot of my work.
Yeah.
And I haven't met him in person, but he's a Microsoft MVP. So every year the MVPs we get to go to Seattle.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping to meet him there, but so far it has not happened. So.
Okay. So, Basad, you listening to us right now? Bassarat actually. So be in Seattle the next time. So I have a few more questions for you. So as an educator, someone that share knowledge and things like that, you also need to stay up to date yourself. You need to keep learning. Yeah. What is the process? What is your process to stay up to date?
For me, my two kind of main sources of information are Twitter and Reddit.
Okay.
And I think, well, the way I do it is I don't spend too much time every day reading articles or anything like that, but I kind of see what people is talking about, and you notice patterns quickly, I think. Okay. So if, for example, React hooks, right? All of a sudden, all Twitter is talking about React hooks.
Indeed.
So when you see something like that, or Vue.js in the last year, I see a lot of activity. So when I see a lot of people talking about some topic, then is when I start also looking into it, because I don't look into every single thing I see, because otherwise I will have no time for nothing. But when I kind of notice a pattern, I look into it.
Okay, so what is trendy at the moment for you?
The latest thing I have noticed big time was the increase in Vue.js.
The what? Sorry.
In Vue.js.
Oh, Vue.js. Okay. Yeah. Vue.js
seems to becoming very popular these days.
Yeah.
In the past
they
year,
also start using TypeScript.
TypeScript
V3,
is. Yeah. There's a lot of TypeScript adoption by big open source projects.
Yeah. Vue.js is one of them, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
The other thing that has become very popular and I'm happy about is Nest.js.
Nest.js, yeah.
On the server side.
Yeah.
Because I was sad when Nest.js was introduced for the first time because they didn't use Inversify. But I was happy to see that they do a lot of things the same way Inversify does them.
Yeah.
And so the reason I did Inversify was because coming from ASP.NET, I really like the way basically every URL maps to a controller and is resolved at runtime.
Yeah. Using
dependency injection.
Indeed.
And the same principle applies to Nest. So I really like that, and I also like that it's kind of becoming something that people like in the server side in Node.js.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, 5 years ago, this was actually not seen as a good thing at all. Like,
no, not at all.
Because it came from .NET, came from Java, and the JavaScript community didn't like.
It's like, no, we don't want anything coming from those community. Yeah.
But now I think a lot of people is enjoying Nest.
Yeah, it's also because a lot of people are going from Java to JavaScript, and then they see that Nest.js as a safe place to be, and still doing backend, but with typings and stuff like that. So, is there so in your journey so far? Is there something you feel like, in terms of trend, you've been doing web development for a while, and now you're going into functional programming? You said you want to make sure that you master something really well, like one of the programming language, which is TypeScript. Is there another programming language out there that you want to learn, or you're probably learning?
So there's a good few. I'm very interested about I don't know when, but at some point I really would like to learn Haskell properly.
Haskell? Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Because
we're in the same journey right there.
Because I think it will help me to understand some of the functional programming things that I don't understand yet. I found a very good document online that is from a conference. I think it's called LambdaConf.
LambdaConf, yeah.
And they have a scale of expertise, and they basically say, if you know these things, you're a beginner. If you know these things, you're an expert. If you know these things, you're intermediate.
Yeah.
And each talk that they do they have the levels. So they say this talk is for intermediate, this talk is for advanced, beginner.
Okay.
So you know if you're going to be able to follow or not the talk.
Yeah.
But this scale is very good for me as a roadmap for learning.
Okay.
Because I can say, okay, I know these things, so I'm intermediate. I can now try to understand the expert things.
Okay.
It's difficult because a lot of the things that are in the kind of expert levels cannot be done, for example, in TypeScript. because the type system is not designed for doing those kind of things. You know? But you could do those things in Haskell.
In Haskell.
So
indeed.
really, if you want to learn the advanced topics, you probably have to use Haskell.
Okay, cool. So let's wrap up. So I'm gonna have a set of questions for you, and then we go from there. When you were writing the hands-on functional programming in TypeScript, with TypeScript, what is the most challenging chapter that you had to write?
It's definitely the category theory chapter.
Okay, I suspect like that will be the one, and I think for most of people that will be most difficult part.
It's difficult to grasp those topics, like understand what is a monad and all that.
Yeah.
But it's even more difficult to explain it to somebody.
Yeah. So what is the most difficult part of building a community like Dublin, a TypeScript Dublin?
So my most difficult challenge right now is finding speakers every month.
Okay. So it's a monthly.
Well, event. It's every 2 months, but even like that, it's difficult to find speakers.
Okay.
I understand it's difficult. Like, a lot of people is scared of public speaking, and I totally understand it because I was there before. But you don't need to be an expert. There's definitely something that you can share, you know. Yeah. It doesn't need to be something new.
Yeah, you don't have to be an expert. That is really important as well. And you work with it. There a problem you had, come and tell people about that problem and how you solve that, and you might even learn new ways of doing it.
And it doesn't need to be something innovative, like it doesn't need to be a brilliant idea or anything like that. Yeah. Just sharing, for example, I solved a very difficult bug last week. Just tell us about it. You know?
Yeah, nice. So what is the most difficult part? I'm just gonna rephrase that question. You've done a lot of stuff. You publish books. You build community from ground zero. You're building a conference. What is your next challenge?
So
you're running a company, and so what is your next challenge? Tell me.
To be honest, I would like to be able to. So my company, I want to basically help developers, right? That's what I want to do. I want to help or individual developers or teams.
Okay. What do you mean by help?
I want to help them to grow, to become better at what they do.
Okay.
So I do that by basically sharing my expertise, and also another way I want to do it is by helping them to maybe meet people who they didn't meet before, things like that. So I think the conference will help for that. So for example, we can bring, hopefully someday, maybe Anders Helsberg to Dublin, you know? Yeah. And people in Dublin will be able to...
They want you in Dublin.
They will be able to meet him in person, have a chat with him. So this will help them to grow, you know? And then also people will grow by, say for example, in Ireland there's never been a JavaScript conference. Okay. So some of the speakers from Ireland will be their very first time speaking in a conference. So it will be a very good thing for them to grow professionally, you know. Okay. So we're going to enable people to grow, to become better, I think.
Okay, got it. So this is it. I think we have a lot of material. We learn a lot from you, your journey, and for someone who's looking for patterns, I was able to get a lot of patterns from you, and I'm just gonna thank you for allowing us to spend time with you.
Thank you for inviting me.
And hopefully, everyone get to know a bit more about you. Could you just share? Could you share with the community the links online where we can find you? Where are you? Where are the place where we can find you?
Yes, so the main one is Twitter.
Okay.
Is my name, Remo H. Jansen.
Yeah.
That's the handler.
Okay.
In GitHub is Remo Jansen.
Okay.
But the main one is definitely Twitter.
Twitter is the best way to reach out. Okay.